We have lots to talk about in today's video, including the latest trade talk around the New York Rangers and Jacob Trouba. It seems like the story, what might go down, seems to be changing here a little bit. We'll give you all the latest on that. Are the Montreal Canadiens interested in Jets prospect McGroarty, who wants a fresh start? We'll discuss how that might work out. Plus, we have the latest on Evander Kane. Will he be traded? Could he be an NYR candidate? We'll discuss what we know there. Plus, some goalies could be on the move. We still have guys like Filip Gustavsson, Yaroslav Askarov, as well as maybe Ville Husso in Detroit could be on the go. So we'll discuss all the latest there. It's also been a very busy day of day 2 of NHL Free Agent Frenzy, as we got tons more signings to discuss as well. A lot more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about here today. Before we get into the signings, I just want to talk about a story that came out in the Toronto Star, written by Steve Simmons, regarding one of the signings that happened on the first day of free agency involving the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, they've signed Finnish defenseman Jani Hakanpää, who's a really big boy. He gets I think it was a 2-year deal at $1.5 million a season, formerly of the Dallas Stars. Obviously, like, this guy's known as more being a defensive specialist. Like, he's really big. Obviously plays the PK, can give you a little bit of physicality, clear the front of the net. A big defensive defenseman. Well, according to the report from Steve Simmons, he's saying that because we know Hakanpää finished the season injured with a knee injury and was out for an extended period of time. I believe it was around mid-March that he did not play for the Dallas Stars the rest of the way. And he's saying that the knee injury is pretty significant, and that he even went as far to say that it wouldn't be shocking if Hakanpää didn't play. It just kind of making it sound like it could be a Johnny Klingberg 2.0. Now, Klingberg, I don't know if he was really damaged goods when they got him or not. It kind of sounds like he was. It sounds like he had been dealing with some ailments for a number of years and really had not taken time to have surgical procedures to get things looked after and corrected, and trying to play through it all. And then after a little bit in Toronto, it was just pretty obvious that he couldn't do it. Like, he wasn't really able to play very well. And I guess we'll see. We don't know where Klingberg's going to land now, because he ended up missing the bulk of the season. Had the surgery that was supposedly needed to correct things, and, well, he remains a free agent. So I don't know what's going to happen with him, or if he's in a state where he can play. The last I had heard was that he wouldn't sign unless he was healthy. So clearly he's not there yet. He could be a similar scenario that Patrick Kane was last year, and kind of wants to wait until the rehab is fully completed and can show teams what he's able to do before he gets a contract. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. But obviously, if that is a legit report, that could be pretty significant. If that's the case, they have to question with the Leafs, like, why is that 2 years in a row that they would assign a defenseman that might be damaged goods? You would think they'd be doing their due diligence. I'm sure they are. The Maple Leafs don't spare any expense when it comes to all the resources made available to their people. So to me, I don't understand why that would be. But we'll have to be, I think it's just something to keep in the back of our minds, a story that's something that's, we'll have to wait and see more about when he shows up for training camp. Because obviously, if it's as bad as Simmons makes it out to be, then clearly training camp should be pretty obvious. So we'll see. But just keep that report in the back of your mind, and we'll see if there's anything more to it down the road. As I mentioned, ton more signings today. I do have a video out on the channel from earlier this evening talking about some of the big ones. Like, we talked about the Victor Hedman extension. We already talked about the Pavel Buchnevich extension. The impasse came to an end with the Senators and Shane Pinto today. So we discussed that, how they came to terms on a 2-year bridge deal. He'll still have 2 years of RFA eligibility left as well. So it's not even a case where if they have the same stalemate that they'll end up going to like a 1-year deal on a, through arbitration or something like that. They would still have 2 years. So all in all, I think they came together on a good compromise. And I think the bridge deal works better for the Senators, for their cap situation. It still allows them a little bit of room to add to make this team a little bit better. And at the same time, it allows Pinto, who's, he missed half of last year with that suspension for gambling. 2 years back, he had a significant shoulder injury and missed the bulk of the year. Like, he really hasn't played that much, like, large amounts of hockey in big stretches. So it gives him solid 2 years. So hopefully stays healthy, hopefully plays a big role. And by the end of it, they have a better idea because I think they want to see that he can become their number 2 center. Right now, he's kind of like their number 3. Does Josh Norris stay healthy? Does Josh Norris move to the wing? It just answers a lot more questions and allows him to bet on himself and I think get a bigger payday. And they give him the $5 million second-year salary so that his qualifying offer was based off that. So all in all, I think it was a good compromise. But a bunch of other signings here as well. Some not like real big deals in terms of significance with money or term, but some good depth options here. So the Vegas Golden Knights sign Victor Olofsson, formerly of the Sabres. He gets a 1-year deal, just over $1 million. So that could prove good. I mean, Olofsson's at one point was, kind of considered a 20-goal guy. At one point, though, is I think this first breakout year, a lot of those goals were in a power play. This past year, his numbers were down. He also expected a trade last year, never happened. I kind of wonder. It was not a good spot for him, so we'll see if he can kind of refine his game here in Vegas. Buffalo signs James Reimer. That was an interesting one. 1 year, $1 million. Of course, we know they have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Devin Levi. Is Reimer coming in more as that third piece insurance? Do they want Levi to spend more time in the minors because he is eligible without needing waivers? It's just going to be like a case of going to camp and having a competition. I don't know. It's curious to see how that works out. But they have a third goalie who's capable. A couple of signings with the Rangers. They signed Bo Gruel, who was not qualified with Anaheim. He gets a 1-year deal, league minimum, 2-way contract. They also brought in Casey Fitzgerald as well on a 2-year contract. That's also a 2-way deal. He'll most likely play in their AHL affiliate. The Colorado Avalanche, for the second day in a row, added a former Senator, signing Eric Brandstrom to a 1-year deal at $900,000. So they picked up Brandstrom and Parker Kelly, who were both not qualified from the Senators this past year. Veteran defenseman Jack Johnson returns to the Columbus Blue Jackets. He obviously played for them a while back, but it's been a while. But he returns on a 1-year league minimum deal. I think there was some desire for him to return to Colorado, but obviously after adding some other pieces like Brandstrom, that kind of doesn't really have room for him there. So he moves on. The Jackets also signed Dylan Gambrell to a 1-year, 2-way deal as well. Of course, he spent the past, I believe last year was in the Leaf system. Before that, he was with Ottawa, formerly of San Jose as well. Pittsburgh signed Sebastian Aho, not the top centerman from the Hurricanes, but the former Islander defenseman. He gets a 2-year deal, league minimum. The Dallas Stars signed Colin Blackwell. He gets a 1-year deal at league minimum. The Devils brings back Tomas Tatar, one of the best names in hockey. 1 year, $1.8 million. So Tatar, of course, had good success playing with New Jersey before. That was 2 seasons back. Of course, last year ended up leaving via free agency. Signed with the Avalanche. It wasn't working out. Got traded to Seattle. Finished up there. Now he's back in New Jersey. Of course, earlier in the day, we've seen the St. Louis Blues make 2 trades with Dallas and one with Ottawa, picking up Radek Faksa and Matthew Joseph. And after trading for Matthew Joseph, they signed his brother, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, formerly of the Pittsburgh Penguins, who was also not qualified. He gets a 1-year deal as well. So the Joseph brothers will reunite in St. Louis. So that's the first time they would have gotten a chance to play together at the NHL. So I'm sure for Matthew Joseph, getting traded out of Ottawa, where he has some good friends there, was a well-respected teammate, and some guys he even got to play junior with. Like he's good buddies with Thomas Chabot. And a few others there that they all played with the St. John Sea Dogs. And I'm sure that was a bummer for him to get moved. I think he was quite happy there. But I'm sure that this was brightening his day after that news that he gets to play with his brother. So that's not, real common. There's a few brother combos around the NHL, not many of them on the same team. Obviously, the Devils have 2 of the Hughes brothers, but not many outside of that. The Florida Panthers today started to replace some of their depth, but they still have work to do. Obviously, they had a major cap issue after winning the championship, which is common. It happens to everybody. They signed Mackenzie Entwistle, a 1-year, 2-way deal, formerly of the Blackhawks. The Maple Leafs signed 3 defensemen, none of which will probably play in the NHL level. I suspect they're all going to be for the Marlies, but it's almost like kind of like spaghetti's way. I got to just throw it at the wall and hope something sticks. They signed Dakota Mermis, who I believe is 30 years old. Philippe Myers, who's a mountain of a man, but has unfortunately never been able to really put it together to have success in the NHL level. And Cedric Paré. Now, they all got 1-year, 2-way deals. Like I said, they're most likely all going to play with the Marlies. to be eligible for call-up, but I don't see it happening. The Anaheim Ducks today signed Jansen Harkins. He gets a 2-year deal, $787,500. The Lightning added an interesting veteran, Cam Atkinson, after getting bought out of the Flyers organization. He goes to Tampa, 1 year, $900,000. I mean, if Atkinson at one point was a pretty good goal scorer, so if he can be healthy and have a fresh start, I kind of wonder if that might be a sneaky good signing for the Lightning there. We'll see how that works out. The Winnipeg Jets, which have kind of become L.A. North, so to speak, get another former King on their organization. They signed Jarrett Anderson-Dolan to a 2-year deal at league minimum, $775,000. The Panthers also made another signing today, adding to their blue line. They got former Jet Nate Schmidt, who was bought out. He gets a 1-year deal at $800,000. So, of course, they lost Montour, they lost Ekman Larson, and they bring in Nate Schmidt as one of the replacements. And outside of those, we did see our first signing of the 2024 NHL draft class with Adam Yurchek, who was drafted later in the first round to the St. Louis Blues. He signs his 3-year entry-level contract. So, of course, Yurchek, the first prospect to sign his deal. Kind of interesting considering he was not a super high pick. Jumping now into the rumor section of the video where we look at some trade stuff. I know one of the teams we want to talk about first will be Montreal. One quick other note on the Montreal Canadiens as well before we get into that. Alex Burrows, who has been an assistant coach for the last few years on the Habs bench, is going to be stepping away from the bench. It's his own decision. He's going to change roles. He's still going to work with the Canadiens, but he's going to go into player development. It sounds like he wanted a different role that would not have him travel so much and that he could spend more time with his family. So certainly understandable on that front. And Montreal, now onto the rumor section. Belief is that Montreal is one of the top teams most interested in Jets prospect Rutger McGroarty. Now there are other teams interested, don't get me wrong, but the team that I keep hearing the most about in terms of pursuing this player is Ken Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens. Now the Canadiens had a fairly quiet draft. They were rumored to be going into this draft to make an acquisition of a top young player. It didn't happen. Now, of course, I think part of that was they got Ivan Demidov. I think that they were going to go into this draft and be like, okay, well, Demidov's our guy. He's who we want. He's a very dynamic forward who will hopefully join us in a year or two. If we get him, we got to make sure there's a spot for him. And if we don't, then we're going to have to pivot here. I'm not saying they would have traded the pick, but they could have. If Demidov goes in the top 4 spots, I wouldn't have been shocked if Ken Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens possibly move back. I do wonder if their number 2 option would have been Tisha Ginla, but again, there was speculation there could have been a run on forwards in the get-go with Beckett Seneca going to the Ducks. It kind of shook things up a bit because a lot of people thought we were going to maybe see Demidov maybe go as high as 2 or 3 to Chicago or Anaheim. And then there was Columbus, who were rumored to be looking at Lidstrom and Ginla too. And then, of course, you had Montreal and Utah on there. So where they got Demidov, like I said, they want to make sure that there's no point in making a big trade for a spot you're going to fill internally. So I do wonder if that's part of it. But McGroarty's an interesting player, and I think he could be one that makes more sense now that they've kind of had their draft to know where everything's at, because he's a player that can play in a couple of different spots. I think he's not necessarily going to be a first-line player. He's more likely going to be in the middle of your lineup. I think he can play center. He can play wing. He can be a hard player to play against. He can be a good defensive player, can produce some offense. Like, to me, he's just a unique kind of player. So it makes sense to me that the Canadiens would like to get him. At the same time, I think they have the assets to do it too. I'm surprised the Jets never pulled off a trade. Now, of course, I know the rumors are that the Habs definitely inquired with the Jets at the draft and around that time, but never came to be on a deal. Don't know if they got as far as making an offer or not, but I mean, I would imagine Winnipeg would love to have one of their young defensemen. You would think a guy like a Jordan Harris might get it done, or do they want somebody who's more drafted a little more recently, a little higher? Would they want Gooley? I don't know. Would they ask for David Reinbacher? Would they ask for even somebody else that might be a recent high pick? Hard to say. But Montreal has the assets. They are definitely in the mix there. I do believe the Jets are... Sounds like they're trying to play hardball. They're not moving him unless they get what they want. He can go back to college. They're not worried about him, because if he's not going to be in their lineup anyway, then that's the way they're looking at it. Like he can wait until we're ready and we get the right deal. But I just would think that with the assets the Habs have, they'd be a prime team to go get him. And the rumor is that they were definitely one of the top teams looking at him. So we'll see. I've heard a bit about the Islanders too. I've heard about the Devils at one point. I'm not sure they're in there still. And time is going to change that, because I also think with Winnipeg and McGroarty, there's still a lot of people wondering what's going on with Nick Ehlers. So Ehlers is another interesting name that's rumored that he wants out, but he hasn't been moved yet. And when we've heard Cheveldayoff speak about it, didn't really allude to too much, said that Ehlers was a big part of their team and what they're doing and all that. So I don't know how that's going to work out. So I know last summer we thought Scheifele and Hellebuck were probably getting traded. And then they signed big 7-year extensions. So we'll see. But based on Ehlers' end-of-season media availability, I'm not sure we're going to get the same outcome as the other two. But we'll see on that. Now, a big update on Jacob Trouba. Like I said, the last report that I was referencing yesterday, which was from the New York Post, which I think was from the day before that, basically said that the Rangers wanted to move on from Trouba. The decision has been made. They're moving on one way or another. They're going to figure this out. They're going to try to force his hand to accept a trade. They're going to put him on waivers. They're going to do whatever they can to move the captain. And now the story seems to be changing here a little bit. Now his trade protection in his contract changed from a no move to a modified no trade, so they can put him on waivers now. But it's believed that he's going to do what he can to block the trades from the teams that he believes would possibly take him with his modified no-trade list, which would have been submitted yesterday as well. Of course, the big thing for Trouba, as we know, you can say what you want about him on the ice, but off the ice, we've seen lots of different features and stories and everything with him and his wife. They definitely are, he definitely comes across as a real good person who's very, conscious of not only himself having a big career, but his wife as well, making sure that, everybody knows that she's just as important. And he said they were going to New York for both of their careers. And she is becoming a doctor, and she's in her residency right now. And she still has a year left in her residency in a New York hospital. So it's not like the whole group of them can just up and move. So that's, from a personal standpoint, why he built this trade protection in there, and why he's being so sticky with not wanting to waive or anything right now. I think at this point, considering where things are at, I think in most scenarios, most players, when they realize the team really doesn't want me, they figure out a way to work with them to get out of it. But, he can't just uproot his family like that. So, basically the way they worked the no move clause, it was apparently to cover the whole residency, to make sure that he didn't get traded during that time. But I believe because of the pandemic, I think everything kind of got changed and bumped ahead a little bit. So she's not done with her residency yet or something. That's basically the story. And, you can say what you want about Trouba as a player. I've seen some people really slandering him online, social media, about not wanting to waive or not wanting to leave and all this. I'm like, okay, I get it. It's a business. But at the same time, leave his personal life out of this. I mean, it sounds to me like he's being a good family man and a good husband and all these things. And, it's his right that he's negotiated these terms into his contract. So it sounds like it'd be at least another year before he'd probably be willing to change things up. Now, of course, I wonder as well with that, can he still go into that room and be the captain? It's just going to make things awkward after all these stories and all this stuff. So I'll be curious to see how it affects the team. But obviously, it's not looking as much likely that we're going to see a trade, but we can't say for sure that it won't happen. It's just less likely. So we'll see where it goes. The Oilers and Evander Kane, I've heard some people speculating that, of course, we know Kane needs a big surgery, that he was playing through a significant injury, and that we heard about potential trades involving him this offseason. And now it seems like people are saying that he probably isn't going to be traded, and he might not even be ready to start the year, that he might become a long-term injury reserve candidate as well. So because of the injury and the surgery, you can't, it does complicate a trade. Most teams are not really going to want to take that on. So again, it seems less likely we're going to see an Evander Kane trade. and it's possible he might start the year on long-term injury reserve. So we'll see how that works out for the Edmonton Oilers. They were able to do a lot of great things through free agency. Again, I wouldn't completely rule out a Kane trade because there is some appetite within the organization to make it happen. But it's tough to do when a player's injured and going through something like he is. So again, we'll see where that goes. Now, some goalies that we could see moved. Like I said, Detroit now has a bunch of goalies. They signed Talbot and Campbell, plus they have Alex Lyon, plus they have Ville Husso. Like, what is Stevie Yzerman doing? Campbell, I don't suspect they signed to be an NHL goalie. At best, a number 3, somebody who can play in their American Hockey League team and be a veteran call-up option. I think that would probably be as far as they'd want to go with that. Talbot and Lyon is a decent tandem, I think. But then here's Husso, and Husso's got the most money. Not that they really need the space right now, but they do need to do long-term, hopefully bigger money deals for Lucas Raymond and Mo Seider, so that's going to cost a bit. So again, Ville Husso to me looks like he could be an odd man out. I just wonder with all the goalies in Detroit, something has to give there. And I think that for teams that might be still looking for goalies, he might be named to watch. So watch for something that maybe transpire there. Philip Gustafsson, the Minnesota Wild goalie, is still very likely to be moved if the Billy Guerin and the Wild find the right deal. Of course, they've still got Fleury and Jesper Wallstedt, who's appears to be the goalie of the future there. Gustafsson's a goalie that they would like to move. Again, I don't think they feel like they have to. He doesn't make a ton of money. And if Wallstedt is, pushing for a spot in training camp, even if he's theoretically the third goalie, I don't know. Hopefully they can work with him to get through one more season. Fleury's retiring after this year, so again, there's going to definitely be a spot next year, but it's believed that if they can move Gustafsson for some other type of help and let Wallstedt get more chance this year, it is something that they would like to do. So keep an eye out for him. And another goalie is the Predators' top prospect goalie, Yaroslav Askarov, who after go ahead and signing Scott Wedgwood as well as extending UC Saros, there's no path for Askarov in the Preds organization to get to the NHL for the next couple of years. So again, this is a player that the Predators are open to moving. I don't think they feel like they have to, but they want another top young prospect in return, ideally, or a young player who's got a little bit of experience. They just don't want a goalie back. They want a defense or a forward. So there's lots of teams out there that could use this kind of player in their system and their organization. Just a matter of who makes the move. There's lots of interesting prospects out there. I kind of wondered about Winnipeg, if that was something they would consider with Rutger McGroarty too. I know we talked about Montreal being the team, and they do have Connor Hellebuyck, so it's not like they desperately need a goalie. And they also brought in Kaapo Kähkönen, but if they wouldn't have signed Kähkönen, I kind of wondered if maybe the Jets would go in that direction, bringing Askarov. He could be the backup maybe for a while, but of course they signed Hellebuyck long term. So again, is it really a place he'd want to go? If you have to look around the NHL and kind of see a path for him to maybe start as a backup for a year or two and then be able to take the reins, it's kind of what you're looking at. And it's just not as obvious right now, but he's definitely looking for an opportunity, and we'll see where things end up. If the Predators get the right offer, he'll definitely be on the move. So that's all your news and rumors for today. Let me know your thoughts on anything down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.